Welcome to the Up Level Dairy Podcast. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and today I'm joined by a dairyman who is gearing up for the ultimate test of his own endurance, a 13-hour trail run. Jordan Matthews from Rosy-Lane in Watertown, Wisconsin, doesn't just run for fun. He runs for a reason, and you're about to hear the powerful story, his why, that has prompted him to start this upcoming 4th annual fundraiser set to take place on November 16th, called A Day in the Park, an ultra running experience that raises money to support cancer research at the Carbone Cancer Center in Madison, Wisconsin, and how you can help support this cause too. There's a lot packed into this conversation on the choices and decisions we make every day, the way we spend our time, and living life to the fullest. Let's hear this conversation with Jordan Matthews from Rosy-Lane Farms. This episode is brought to you by Adisseo. Adisseo is a global leader in animal nutrition and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. To get us started, Jordan, tell me a little bit about you.
I'm pretty proud to be a father of 2 lively little kids. So I've been married to my wife now just over 9 years, Katie, and have a little boy, George, who's 4, and my little girl just started. She's walking and she's working on potty training. So she's 18 months, Maria. She's great. As far as dairy background, I don't come from a dairy family, not born on a farm or raised. But when I was in high school, my sophomore year, I took a chance, and I think Daphne took a chance on me. I was a paper boy, picked sweet corn, washed dishes at a Chinese restaurant. I had a bunch of odd end jobs, but they all fizzled out. Daphne was looking for a calf feeder, and my mom had a house cleaning company and cleaned Daphne and Lloyd's house. So I had an interview at the farm, and I remember the 2 questions that I got asked was, why would you be a good candidate to work at a farm? And I said, I never had any pets, so I don't think I'm a good candidate. They asked, why do you want to work here? I said, I don't have any money, and I need some money. So that seemed to be good answers. That was December of my sophomore year of high school. Fast forward, it's been 22 years at Rosy-Lane. I think they left the door wide open for me, and we've had a fun ride. It's become a career. I don't know when I was a little boy that I would imagine myself farming, milking cows, and it's kind of led me to where I am today as a partner and working with our team here at Rosy-Lane.
And 22 years later, you're still part of Rosy-Lane Farms, but your position, your role has evolved and changed because you're now not just a manager, but you're a partner too, right? It's fun to kind of get to hear a little bit of the backstory of how you got to Rosy-Lane. I don't know this story, so this is fun to get to dig into that. And at some point, I would really love to sit down and have a conversation about that side of things, of getting into a dairy and becoming a partner. That's a conversation for another time, but for today's purposes, I really want to dig into the cool things you are doing that are purposeful and meaningful and that push you to this higher level of your own potential. And this relates to a big effort that you have right now. Talk a little bit about this event on November 16th. What is it?
This will be my 4th time doing something like this, but we're trying to do a fundraiser for cancer research done at the Carbone Cancer Center in Madison, associated with the University of Wisconsin. It's called A Day in the Park. There's a park right near where I live called Korth Park, located in Lake Mills, Wisconsin. And we want to get people outside, want to get people to enjoy the outdoors, get involved with some physical activity, and then some personal, myself, from 5 a.m. till 6 p.m. that day. I'll be putting in an effort to see if I can run that whole time. I'm into ultra events and endurance events. That's kind of how I push myself in a little bit of a different way. The longest I've ever run was just shy of 10 hours. And we're going to see if I can go for 13 with the goal of someday trying to do a 24-hour event. So Saturday, 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. I suckered a couple people in. I think I got 8 or 10 people running with me, and there'll be some walkers, and it's got a playground for kids to play at. But we're hoping to raise $10,000. So anyone nearby, come join us.
Your goal on Saturday, November 16th, is to run for 13 hours from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. running.
There will be some walking in there. There's got to be break to eat and drink. But yeah, constant movement for 13 hours. I haven't said it publicly yet, but we'll see if I can do 70 plus miles. My previous distance is 58. See if we can get a little further.
This is what they call ultra endurance running, is these extended stretches of time and many miles beyond what most humans can comprehend. But you said this is the fourth time that you have done an endurance race like this. I say race, but really the race isn't against another person. It's a challenge you put on yourself. There's a purpose behind this challenge. The purpose is to raise money for cancer research through the Carbone Center in Madison, Wisconsin. There's a reason that this is meaningful to you. Tell us a little bit. Where does that come from? Why are you doing this?
I think people take life for granted until something tragic hits close to home. But October of 2019, my brother Ross, 6 years older than me, but he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He's one of the healthiest humans I know, exercised on a daily basis, watched what he ate. I don't know, lives in Colorado, did everything that quote unquote a healthy human should be doing, but started to notice a few things with his training, that he was getting slower, and he thought it was age. Approaching 40, things were slowing down faster than age would slow you down. So after some tests, we knew he was going through some things. There was a couple options that doctors were hoping for, but I remember being at mom and dad's house and getting the call that it was cancer. They had given him 6 months to live. That wasn't fun. Ross, he changed all of us that day. He said, I don't want anyone to ever worry about me. Worrying doesn't fix it, right? He says, you all have families and friends that need you. I'll let you know when I need you, but don't slow down for me. He says, I'm young. I am healthy. Doctors say I needed to get ready to go to battle. And I didn't really know what that meant. You hear of people going through chemo, you hear of cancer treatments, but I've never gone through that. I don't know what that's going to be like, and either had my brother. But they said, you need to get in the best physical shape of your life, because when you have chemo, we're trying to kill you, right? We're killing everything in your body, including the cancer. And we hope once the cancer's killed, you're still remaining, is kind of how he got it explained to him. So he said, all right, I have 2 children, and I got to fight. So we were all there with him, but it was interesting to see. I didn't have cancer in my body. I don't think I have cancer today. I got screened at 33 years old, had my first colonoscopy, which was kind of like, why are you going into that? And doctors are asking me questions. They say you're supposed to be 50. They just reduced that to 45. But yeah, he was a young man at the time. But he's, again, it's 5 years later. He's with us today. He's not cancer free by any means. I think he's had over 100 rounds of chemo now. He looks like me. He's still very physically active, but he says every day is a gift, and every day I need to wake up knowing I'm fighting for something. And it's odd. I didn't know that I was ever going to be a father, but to see how, he's fighting for one thing. He wants to make sure his kids get to see him. He wants to make sure that his kids know who he is in case something takes a turn for the worse. So that's my courage for all this. I didn't know what I could do, but I don't really ever want to know what it's like to go through chemo. I think that would be a gift if I never had to know what it's like. But I told Ross, I can do something hard and support you, and I can hopefully raise some funds to lift his spirit. It wasn't just a couple weeks after my brother got diagnosed. My wife's aunt, who's very close, got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She lives local in Madison. So our first event that my wife and I ever organized, I said, I'm going to run as far as I can, as hard as I can, and see if we can do something to try to lift their spirits, know that we're fighting with them too. I'm not sure exactly always how we can let them know we're fighting, but we ran 54 miles one day, and that was right during the start of COVID. No one had anything to do. They were looking for reasons to get outside, but we ran the Glacial Drumlin Trail from Waukesha to Cottage Grove, and it was a touching moment. Aunt Diane was able to be there at the finish line. She had started going through some treatments, and I remember at the finish line, she just smiled and she said, "This will get me through some days, Jordan." And we had, I don't know, maybe 50 people there. A small group, but close family members that were able to show Diane that we're supporting her.
As you share this story, Jordan, of what that time in life was like 5 years ago, and you said that your brother said to you that the doctors told him to get ready for battle. And those words, they seem to have stuck with you.
I think we get to choose how we want to wake up, and we get to choose how we want to live our day. And it was early on, I think, when I became a manager of sort, but I had a saying I always said to me, control the controllables. There's only so many things in life that we can touch, that we have some power over or influence over. And I look at someone that's told, you might not be breathing and you might not be on the right side of the dirt in 6 months. He says, I got to go to battle. I got to work as hard as I can and be physically tough to make it through these treatments just so I can wake up and see my kids. And I didn't have a son at that time or a daughter, and you hear that and it's wild. So today when I wake up, it's one of my goals is to be exhausted at the end of the day, because that's a privilege I have to be exhausted. Sleep's really important to me. I get up in the morning. I can choose what kind of attitude I have when I show up, whether that's for family, for farm, for friends. But I go to the dairy. I get to choose what kind of attitude I want to have when I meet with all of our team members on a daily basis. And then afterwards, I try to just bury myself with some activity, and then I get to beat up by my kids. And it's a fun feeling. And when I go to bed, it's usually a race who's more tired, the kids or me. And our bedtimes aren't too far apart. But if I'm tired and I can fall asleep in 30 seconds when my head hits the pillow, to me, that's a sign of a pretty good day.
This attitude and perspective that you have on how you live every day as a dad, as a manager at the dairy, a lot of this attitude comes from this experience of what you've seen your brother go through. And what has that journey been like for him in the last 5 years? And how have you been a part of it with him?
You don't want to just talk about cancer, right? He's still my brother. He has said he doesn't want cancer to define him. He knows as of today he's kind of a statistic. But how have we been able to connect through this? Running has been a fun thing we've been able to do from afar. So he lives near Fort Collins, Colorado. But once I got into running, he's a big biker. He's completed an Ironman. He's done, I think, a couple marathons. But again, always into activity. But once I started doing some of these ultras, I think he was intrigued. And so we started small, but we did some 10-mile trail runs. I think we did a 13, then we did a 15.5 out in Colorado. And it was a reason for me to fly out there to spend a weekend with him and his family. When we're training, we're big Strava guys, which is like Facebook for workouts. And we'd share our workouts and we could have banter back and forth, right? I think we've done 2 ultras together now, one in Colorado. And then I finally said, I've flown to Colorado enough. You can come out to Wisconsin and do one. So we've done 2 over 30 miles together. But it's given us something that, again, it's not just talking about his sickness. It gives him a reason to keep fighting, a way to get ready for war. I need something to free my mind every day too. And so I think working out, spending some time outside, just the cadence of your feet pounding the ground is relaxing. It's meditative. It started out as probably aggression more than anything. What are you supposed to think when you hear that news that I might not have a brother on, breathing in a couple months? So you could sit on the couch, you could sulk. Again, you get to choose how you want to handle that news. So I chose it as, I'm going to go for a run. It's going to give me time to think. I can still remember when I first got back into running. I was a high school runner. It's not totally new to me, but how I'm approaching it might be different. Not looking to, if you and I, Peggy, line up at a marathon, I don't really care if I beat you or not. I just want to get to the finish. It's me versus me. I remember the first time I laced up and had a 5K loop, and I had to stop twice during that, and I did not have any record-setting pace. And now I'm to the point like, if I can't go running for an hour to an hour and a half, it's probably not worth it because it's a different mindset I get into. It's time for me to think. And I know my brother looks at that and it holds him accountable too. If he knows I'm out running and he sees an update on Strava that says Jordan went for 10 miles, he gives me the kudos and the thumbs up, and he knows, well, that means Jordan's probably looking at me and I got to make sure I get my workout in. So it's an accountability thing, but I kind of have to laugh when people say, that sounds hard. That's impossible. It's like, well, I don't know. I was there for the birth of my two children. And sometimes I scratch my head like, how can a lady prepare for childbirth? There's nothing you can do for that. My wife says, you're crazy for doing that. I'm like, for you to have our first kid took longer than I'm going to be running. We're in the hospital. Nothing about that looked easy. And you can't train to have a kid. I can go out running, right? And so there's examples in everyone's life. Because it's different, it doesn't mean it's impossible, right? People have kids every day, and I don't think I'll be able to accomplish in my life as far as physically having a kid, right? There's not the technology there today, but I can run for a long time. That's something interesting that I can do. I remind my wife of that all the time when she says, you're crazy. I said, I don't know. I was there for the birth of our two kids, and that seems pretty crazy.
Jordan, you got a big kudos from every woman that has ever had a child that's listening to this, including me. 2 thumbs up.
It's interesting how he's approached it. His doctors have told him no one's lived as long as he has. So they remind him all the time when there's a bump in the road. He kind of asks, what are we going to do? And they say, we don't know. We've never made it this far. You're an N of 1. He says, as long as there's a plan, as long as the doctors say there's a plan, we're good, we're safe. The second they say there's no plan is when things get scary. I like to think about that in my life too. If we can plan for tomorrow, we can prepare for the best. We can only control so much. Ross also has a saying that I think is funny. It at times is unfortunate how he uses it, but it says we make plans and God laughs. We can do what we want, but we can prepare as hard as we feel fit. And ultimately, if you're a person of faith, the big guy has control over our destiny. He's going to help guide us. Sometimes we're in sync with his plan, and sometimes not so much.
I want to talk about that mindset piece. There's the physical training, there's the mental training. How do you train your brain to run for the hours that you put in, which could be at the most, it's been 10, you said. Now we're looking at 13. How do you get your head in that spot?
It's interesting when I do a lot of training, that's me time. From the second I get up till the second I go to bed, there's a plan and time allocated for different things. I like to turn off the world. I'm not reporting to anyone at the dairy. I try not to take calls. Every once in a while I have to take a call on the run, but I might put headphones in and listen to a podcast. Usually I actually don't try to do any listening to business podcasts, or it's something just completely different. Has anyone said they don't like listening to birds chirp? Has anyone ever said they don't like hearing, leaves in fall rustling between your feet? It's peace. It's me time. When I started running, I think it was, I want to listen to a new artist and listen to music. That got old really quick. I'm waiting for, okay, it takes 2 songs to get to the next mile, and I'm counting miles and I'm counting miles. Now to the point, it's before I even know it, I look down at my watch and I'm like, wow, okay, hour 15, let's go for another half hour. It's my me time. My wife likes to get pedicures, and that's her me time. Everyone does it differently. To me, my feet look gross because my me time is different than a pedicure.
Yeah, you might actually need the pedicure from this sort of me time.
I do get a couple a year. It's a nice date we go on, and it seems like it takes them longer to do mine than Kate's feet. So, but yeah, it's me time. When I do my longer efforts, I've never had headphones in. I think it's almost like meditation, but I got to be thinking about why I'm out there. I'll be laughing during moments. I'll have some fun memories pop in. There's periods of time when I'm crying, and it's not necessarily from pain, but it's remembering the why. And there is nothing like when you're done. It's fun to share that with people. This upcoming Saturday, I have quite a few close friends that are going to try to put some record attempt for themselves out there. And that's what it's all about. If you've never run 5 miles, try to run 5. If you've never done 10, try to do 10. And the first run I did, I was by myself. And now I got, I'll say, 8 to 10 suckers to come out there with me and enjoy the day. But if everyone can push themselves a little bit and choose how you want to live your day, I think it's pretty important. It's peaceful and it's you. But if you let someone else decide how you're going to live your day, I don't know. That's a prison sentence to me.
So when you talk about how you run, and by that I mean unplugged, as a runner myself, there's something that is really reflective or eye-opening or awakening about those long runs. And in fact, I can remember exactly where I was running and what I was doing when I had the clarity and vision for what I'm doing now to make a big switch in my career and life to create Up Level Dairy. Like, I can specifically remember exactly the spot in the road I was on at mile 10, and it was like, poof, I could just see it. Have you ever had an experience like that where there was something that just really got super clear for you when you were in that state of being able to clear your head? Because it is hard, especially for someone like you, right? Like anybody who's in management and on a dairy that's got people and things constantly moving around. What's come to you in those moments?
Yeah, I think just it's reaffirming a lot of days why I'm here, my objective on this planet, and putting it very, very basic, right? I think I've been put into a position that I can affect people's lives for the positive or negative. There's a small team we have here at the dairy. I think when we look at our industry, the dairy industry, it's not very different from some of my ancestors that moved here to this country in the hopes and searching for a better life. We have a lot of individuals on our farms that weren't born in the U.S. and it's looking in and talking to them and trying to hear their stories and their objectives in life. Some days it's simple, right? We come from something not good and want to make it better. We have that opportunity here at Rosy-Lane. Point number one in our vision is great people, great cows, great returns. It's a fun opportunity every day when we choose to come to the dairy. We have a choice and a decision we can make. Can we be good to our people? Can we build them into great people? Every day I come here, I'm grateful for the people that show up. I want to learn more about their goals and do everything we can at Rosy-Lane to make sure that they achieve those goals. But it's pretty cool to see and hear the stories of our team members that they strive for something better for their families. Through being a team member at Rosy-Lane, we've gotten some people to their goals and some people are still working on it. But everyone has a decision with the hours you're awake in a day, right? So there's a lot of people that make the decision to show up and help us take care of our cows. If they're willing to do that, we need to do our part, make sure that they have food on their table at the end of the day. Let's make sure it's some good food, right? Not only they have a roof over their head, but let's make sure it's a nice house that they are able to live in and that they can contribute to our local community in a favorable way. There's a lot of stigmas about people born outside of this country taking jobs or negative connotations. It doesn't take long on the dairy farm to realize what good people we have and their goals and objectives. And it's admirable. My great-grandparents were similar. They came here looking for a chance. We can choose to have positive effects or negatives, and we can move them in the right direction. Everyone at Rosy-Lane can work together to do that.
Jordan, as you have been sharing these perspectives that you have and just even the way you become more connected with that purpose of why you're here and the ability to impact other people in a positive way, including the people that work at Rosy-Lane. There are a couple of words that I have heard you say repeatedly, and one of them is about deciding, whether it's deciding how you spend your time, the attitude at which you walk into the dairy each day and walk into other opportunities in life and face things in life, deciding. And the other one is choices, right? You're talking about choices and decisions. And It seems like you have some pretty clear things you decide every day. And I want to know how you're able to do everything that you do. When you decide to be an owner and a manager, you decide how you want to show up with energy and attitude. You decide to run for hours for a purpose and to challenge yourself. What does it take to live the life you decided on? Habits, routines, core things you're doing. What does it take to do the things that you're doing? The things that you have decided and chosen to do?
I fully understand I need to get more organized. I've never appreciated when people say they don't have enough hours in the day. I think that's an excuse. If someone tells me like, sorry, I ran out of time, I couldn't get that for you. To me, all I hear, I wasn't important to you yesterday, which is fine. Everyone chooses what's the most important in their day. One thing I've looked at really early on in my schedule and how where I decide to sleep and get up. In the morning hours, I get a lot done. I've always been a morning person, getting up between 2 and 3 every morning. So when you're driving, there's not a lot of traffic. When you get to the dairy, there's not chaos yet. Chaos usually starts around 5 to 6 in the morning at our farms. That's when feeders show up. That's when shift changes. But pending night shift went well. That's silence. I have a nice hour or two that I can accomplish things in the office. I can get things ready for the day. But if I chose to show up at 5, it's instant chaos. And when do I get some me time? So that's one thing I realized early on. That schedule worked well for me. Then there's always a couple hours of putting out the fires of the last 24 hours. I've realized managing people that you have to just allow some blank space for people every day. And we're a small company, so we don't have an HR department. Every manager is kind of an HR department. I always laughed when you see the corporate world and they have their calendars and every hour is blocked off for something. As I've grown in my career, I'm slowly turning into that. But if people want to sit and talk with me, I have no problem with that. But can we make a scheduled appointment for that? And if we're going to talk, let's say we're going to talk for 20 minutes and let's be prepared. Let's both know what we're going to talk about. Maybe it's not a full written agenda, but even a text, hey, I want to talk to you about my upcoming vacation, blah, 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 fill in the blanks. And at 20 minutes, we're going to limit it. Otherwise, we could talk all day. There's a lot of structure. And then I have tried to put limits on my day at the farm. So certainly the farm is a big part of my life. It has been. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But I have put some priority on, for me to be the best I am at the farm every day, I do need time for me. I like to have 2 hours in the afternoon. That is me time. And that's before I go pick up my kiddos from school and before we have dinner and the chaos of the afternoon in a young family. That's when I do my running or outdoor exercise. It's very structured. It took me a while to find that, but I think what I have now is I can always get up earlier, but my day ends at the same time, right? I'm ultimately tired by some point. So as long as I fall asleep on time, as long as I get I'm a 6.5 hours of sleep, that works for me. My whole family knows, like, hey, if I need to get up tomorrow, the house is getting quiet a little bit earlier tonight because that's really important. And in our whole family, we prioritize sleep because we're not fun people to be around, especially the youngins. If they don't get their 12 hours of sleep, they get dad excited a little easier. My wife works full time, so it's important for her to get, she likes her 8.5 hours and I'm at 6.5, but it's very structured. And when someone's out of line, it doesn't function as well. So, we have our habits, we have our mindset, and structure is the word that comes to mind to me. But yeah, very, very regimented. And we know when we're out of sync because it's pretty easy just to look at the calendar, look at what time of day it is. And we know where we're approximately going to be and what we're going to be doing.
So you've really learned to put the structure in place and have these, I call it like your productive hours, which for you happen to be extremely early in the morning, very, very early, earlier than probably most people, but you also have learned that that's the time that you can get things done uninterrupted, getting up early and getting to the dairy before things get a little bit busier and crazier. And it's interesting when you talk about making time for people. but also blocking time for yourself and training, preparing for the evening to be the dad you want to be and the husband you want to be with your family. Do you still do the 21-minute naps? Is that a thing? Did you tell me this? Okay, tell me about that.
I feel like I need a reset. At the dairy, I'm not working with as many people as I once did, just our management team. But all day, it just seems like there's either meetings or phone calls. Your mind is racing with the things that keep us busy on the dairy every day. Everyone's different, but I've never heard someone that didn't stay busy. Once I get home for the day, yesterday was 14 and a half minutes. That was my nap. But I like just some time. Again, when my head hits the pillow, I can turn it off pretty quick, but it's a short reset. If you do more than 30, to me, it's like you wake up groggy and you're not there. But that's my short little reset in my afternoon. And once I get up from that, usually I already have my running clothes laid out, put the running clothes on, head outside, put some miles on, spend some time pounding the feet and doing some meditation there. Come home, shower, start cooking up dinner, and then it's, a couple hours of chaos. Some people need an hour nap, but to me, very productive is those close the eyes, make sure you're in a mindset that you can fall asleep quick. And I have like vivid dreams in short naps, and I wake up and you're like, whew, I feel like I can jump right back into it, but a longer nap certainly slows me down and I'm more groggy. And there's a lot of research on that too. It's not just me talking, but there's some good books on sleep, naps, and recharging.
So you found that the sweet spot for you for that recharge is that 21-minute nap, and that's between when you get home from the dairy and when you go out and you do your thing. And I think that kind of speaks to the way that you've learned to optimize yourself. To do big, hard things that stretch you, it requires more of you, and it requires the discipline. It requires the rest, and it requires the fueling too. And so I got to ask, right, as a runner myself, when you're preparing your body to do the things you're doing, what does that take nutritionally? When you're going to be out running for 13 hours on November 16th, you've already done the training, you're doing the mental work, but the kicker is if your body runs out of gas. So how do you fuel for something like that?
It's interesting. I might make a parallel to look at how we run dairy farms, right? There's times you do everything. Everyone on their farm knows, at 6:30 a.m. we need to have first feed drop. We need to be pushing feed every 2 hours. This pen needs to be milked at this time. It's regimented. So it's really not that different. If I'm looking to perform, I know the metrics basically of consumption that I need to have every hour. So my little tidbits when I'm running, I know I need 20 to 30 ounces of liquid an hour. That works well for me. Maybe throw a shot of pickle juice in there. I like to take 2 salt tabs an hour, and I want to consume 300 to 400 calories an hour. Some people like liquid calories, like a Gatorade type drink. And then I want quick carbohydrates. I'm a big fan of peanut butter, honey, tortillas, mashed potatoes with butter. I eat real food. People that are into sports or endurance events might know the gels and the chews, and that's not for me. I like eating real food. The less processed, the better. It's a calculator game. That's part of the reason when I'm doing these, I can't have headphones in. I'm really focused on, okay, how long has it been? It might have been a half hour, 40 minutes. Have I eaten anything? I always have pockets full of food. It's nice to have my wife there, and she kind of gets the gig. She knows I'm going to probably get grouchy at some point, but she knows, hey, he maybe hasn't drank something, and you need more calories. If my face is full of salt, she knows I need more salt. It's very calculated. In every hour I need to do these things, and that's where, to me, it's usually not legs that hurt, but you'll burn out of calories if you don't eat and drink during these events. And just like a cow, right? If you don't give push up the feed a cow, you see issues. And so if I'm going for personal record setting distances, I need to make sure that the consumption and calorie intake keeps up with the calorie output.
You're calculating every step, timing things out, but okay, mashed potatoes. How do you eat mashed potatoes while you're running? What does this look like?
So you can get them on Amazon, but the little baby pouches, otherwise a Ziploc bag, and you bite the end off. It's like short little meals often. I'm not eating a double bacon cheeseburger from Culver's by any means, but it's little 50 and 100 calorie snacks extremely often. And that seems to work. And when you talk to people that do this kind of stuff, there's certain things that agree with your system and certain things that don't. I like eating food. To me, it's enjoyable. Gels that just doesn't taste good. And again, it's a decision I made, and it works for me. But yeah, mashed potatoes, salty mashed potatoes with butter in them and warm, like on a cold day, in 10 days from now, it's going to be 40 degrees in the morning. That's something to look forward to. Some decent food or a fun snack that you like. But I don't know anyone that's looked forward to eating those gel packs when you're running. Those aren't very good.
No, they're horrible. Oh, so I'm picturing you out running, eating mashed potatoes. You've gotten to know your body, and even your wife can see it, right?
You're playing games with brain demons, and your body's running out of calories. But getting behind on nutrition happens every time to me. Sooner or later, water doesn't taste good anymore. My electrolyte drinks don't taste good. You throw a Pepsi or some type of soda. I don't really enjoy drinking soda, but you're craving it. You might be screaming at the people helping you, like, I need something else. You need to drink water. I'm like, oh, the water doesn't taste good. Earlier this year, I did a run at the Ice Age Trail down in like Whitewater area. And yeah, there were some tough miles, like 27 to 35. I wasn't running very fast, a lot of power walking. You'll get through it, but I probably got behind on some nutrition and I need to reload. And by the time you put it in your body and your stomach digests it, it just takes time. So 7 miles that maybe should have taken only an hour took me closer to 2. The finish line is another hour away, and it makes the day a little longer, but it's more gratifying getting to the end. That sense of accomplishment is just, it's different. And it's fun if you can do these events with people, because seeing people push themselves to the max, right? I'll go back to when we had our children born in the hospital. Like, when you see a mom hold her baby, that's something special. And she went through something incredible to get that prize, right? And I get to hold on to it, and I just had to stand in the room and be a cheerleader that day. But it was a big effort you put in, and it's cool when the reward for me is just a number, but it's saying I put myself through something tough and check that box. Then you try to look for the next thing to keep challenged and motivated.
You haven't stopped looking for things to keep you challenged and motivated. When you take a step back and tie some of these pieces together, the dairy industry is where your career is. These endurance races challenge you and they push you. How has this changed your perspective on the dairy industry and what you're doing every day?
There's been some things I would say as an outsider. I'm not ashamed of that, not being brought up in this industry. But I don't think our industry has always been the picture of health. We take a lot of pride in the products we produce. Milk, look at all the data, right? It's one of the most wholesome things you can put in your body to fuel yourself. And I agree with all of that. I've struggled for a long time when the people who are pitching this product, the dairy men and women, are saying this is the greatest thing, simple ingredients, wholesome nutrition. And then we look at sometimes how we live, and I don't think that always aligns with it. So, simple things I look at when I got into this industry, you could pick an old farmer out very routinely when you're, let's say walking through the grocery store in town. Hunched over, knee needs a replacement, hip needs a replacement, shoulder, and you kind of go like, what happened to that guy? It kind of looks like he just went through battle, and his battle was milking cows all these years. Can we do this maybe a little different? Stretching, making things a little more ergonomic. The common theme in the dairy industry is just work harder when I started, and just put more hours towards it. And I don't know, I look at a lot of things when we've actually reduced hours per team member at Rosy-Lane, performance has gotten better. We used to have guys that, can we work our days off, and I know why. They want to make money to better their lives and their families, but they weren't happy people. So let's work a little bit less, and maybe you don't want to spend money, but there's a lot of things you can do on your day off that don't cost anything. Treat yourself to a nice meal out. But I look at our industry and everything you can read in the last couple of years, mental health, right? So farmers traditionally work hard. When things are tough, they work harder. They forget to sleep. They get up, pound a bunch of Mountain Dews, maybe a couple coffees in there to dilute the Mountain Dews. If we're using science to preach that our product is healthy, why are we throwing some not healthy products in our body? And on the farm, we very much stay active. But is it the right kind of activity? Are we preparing our bodies for that every day? I'll never forget a visit I took up at Riverview in Minnesota, and they do stretching before they milk cows every day. So while we don't do that quite yet at Rosy-Lane, we certainly have talked about that, and we have conversations about, let's make sure we consume water during the day, not just energy drinks. Make sure you sleep at night. But a healthy overall lifestyle, I think, is important. And when we do that, we've seen better performance of our people. When we have high performing people on our team, our cows are able to perform to their best because they're getting treated the best. So it all aligns with our vision of great people, great cows, great returns. But it's paying attention to people, coaching people, that if we can live a little healthier. I mean, no one has ever felt bad after taking a walk outside. No one regrets drinking a glass of milk. How many people have you heard in their life say, like, I probably should stop drinking soda, right? And so it's pretty simple. Like, did that make me a better person by that action? And when we talk about those type of things in the dairy industry, I think there's a lot to be said on the way we've lived and handled our days of just working ourselves to death. And you get to the end and say, I've worked so hard. There's a saying, when people stop farming, they die. Is that a sales pitch for our industry? For me, it's not. We should say we're providing great nutrition for worldwide markets, and we're on people's table for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and be proud of how we do it. And we also live good lives as well.
Jordan, as you talk about that, and that, again, choices and deciding, right? Like, you're making decisions for yourself of how you want to live, but leadership starts from the top down. And because you are so in tune with what it takes for you to be at your best, nutrition, rest, being outside, and it's activity. Now, granted, your activity is a little more extreme, but no one regrets getting out for a walk, right? But you're now looking at how can you carry that through to the rest of your team and improve their performance and the overall performance of the dairy. Go back to your three key things, right? Great people, great cows, and that leads to great returns when you get the first two things in the right spots. But it all comes back to what you're doing for yourself and the way that that's setting a tone. Would you say that's becoming part of what you bring into the culture at Rosy-Lane?
I think that's definitely the culture we want here. I think of back when I started here, we had a lot of, I would say, single males who, it was a pride competition of how hard can we work? How many hours can we work? And it's kind of fun as a young guy competing with them. It's a macho mentality, but it doesn't take long to realize this isn't good for the overall picture. And I think when we talk to our management team, there's nothing that makes them happier than hearing someone ask to take off so they can go to their kid's soccer game. If their kid has a band concert, like, they're good members of their family, if they're contributing to the community. And those are people we want to be here, right? Those are fun people to work around, and that they're not afraid to take some time off. That goes into a lot of the benefits, I think, that we want to make sure we can provide. So they're taking enough money home that they can spare an hour or two of work. They're not afraid for that. I know we're paying a more than fair wage. And there's something about that family aspect. If we can encourage that, we've seen the full picture at our farm. Like, those people last longer. We have less turnover. Time with family is important. There's not one person that said, I regret going to my kid's soccer game yesterday, right? The cows got milked. We took care of business at the farm. There's people that filled in those gaps, and they know too, hey, today I had to fill in for you. Tomorrow, when I have to leave early for something. Early on in my management career, it was like, no, if you're here from 5 till 5, we need you all day, every day. And that's not working. That's a pretty terrible mentality. And I paid for that I would fill in those gaps. And those are the big hours that you put in. And then you're not supportive, you're not in the right mindset. But everyone gets home, everyone gets some rest, everyone gets family time. And through that, we've seen much better returns and I think better treatment of our animals.
As you're talking about this, Jordan, prioritizing people and their families and their personal health, doing it yourself, you've been bringing this into the culture amid a time when your dairy has not been standing still. There's been a lot of things going on. It's not like everything just stopped. The world kept spinning. It hasn't slowed down, but it sounds like it was really important to you that even during this busy season and all of the moving pieces and parts, that you didn't lose sight of these things.
No, not at all. And I think it just goes back to having focus and how you decide you want to live your day. Being organized with what's the purpose of today, right? If tomorrow's Friday, by this afternoon, before I leave the dairy, I'm going to be looking and what's going on tomorrow? What's my purpose? What do I need to get ready? And be mentally prepared for tomorrow's day and how are we going to tackle that and who are the people that we're going to talk to and get things adjusted so that it's a successful day. And I tell a lot of our managers, I think the goal would be if we can have 9 successful days out of 10, that's pretty good. To expect 10 out of 10, I don't know. That's tough for me to live in that world. I don't think that's reality, but 9 out of 10, that's pretty good. If we have 7 out of 10, we're not preparing, we're not making the right decisions. We need to analyze that. And if you have more treatments in the barn, if feed isn't getting delivered on time, every aspect of the dairy, I look at 9 out of 10. If we can get 9 out of 10, that's good. If we get 10 out of 10, no one's complaining, right? Check that box, and we need to focus on the area that we're only getting 5 out of 10. We always have our head on a swivel, and we're looking for the places that need help. And there's certainly places that we're achieving great things in. So we maybe don't need to focus so much in those areas. But I think preparation, good decision making, and then execution is how we look at it.
What do you think are the biggest wins at Rosy-Lane in the last year? You're kind of coming to the close of 2024. What have been the biggest wins?
In our managers meeting the other day, we try to get together once a month. We look at some metrics, and we looked around the table and we started that managers meeting 3 years ago, and it's all the same faces. We've had no turnover on that management team. We looked at our Paoli farm, and we're talking about some of the metrics over there. We haven't had a new face there in 18 months. At our Watertown farm, we've had 1 new face in 18 months. So to us, we look at that. A lot of our metrics that we measured were improving. We're making progress, and I think all that goes back to if we don't have turnover, we know we're treating our people with respect. We're providing a place that they choose to spend hours of their day away from their family. They are enjoying that because they have not decided to leave. And when we do that, we can train higher level things. Through that, we can achieve better metrics, more productive dairy, and everyone wins. But continually, everything we look at in our system starts with people, and they are where the execution happens. If we lose focus of that, the system doesn't work. It's really cool to see. We hear that from a lot of our suppliers. We know everyone's name here. They've been here a while. That's the dream. Years ago, oh my gosh, it was a revolving door. Once a month, we'd be replacing someone new, and you're not able to train those higher level protocols or objectives. But we're not at entry level anymore. All of our people are past that, and we talk about everyone on our dairy. We want them to be a professional. I think a professional is someone who's excellent at their craft, right? So we have professional milkers, and that means they're really good because do the math, right? They've spent a lot of hours in that, and they make it look easy. And that's the definition of a professional. And you watch pro sports, it's like, wow, basketball looks easy. And if I put a ball in my hand, it's like, well, it's not as easy as they make it look. So yeah, I think just really appreciation for the people that show up through the door. And if we continue that, I think we're going to be here for a long time. And that's our goal, great returns. When you talk about sustainability, we need to do everything so that we're here in 50 years because that's our goal. And if we take care of the people, everything else falls in place.
Taking care of people, that's a decision. And that's a choice. The theme I keep hearing from you, Jordan, is the choices and decisions you make and then put into action and lead by example. And that comes out to play in the way you push yourself to do hard things, and the way that the culture is growing and evolving at Rosy-Lane. People come to work, they want to stay, and now are able to achieve bigger things together because of the longevity, buy-in, and the excitement for what you have going on at Rosy-Lane. Speaking of choices and decisions, you've made a choice. You've got a date on the calendar. On November 16th, you are pushing yourself with the goal of 13 hours of running. And that's going to be in Lake Mills, Wisconsin. And there's an open invitation for others to come and support you. If I wasn't going to be in Savannah running a marathon that day, I would come and run a few miles with you. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you, but I will be happy to make a commitment to your goal of raising money through what you're doing as well. And I want to make sure that our listeners know how they can support the cause, because these hard things that you're doing go back to supporting cancer research and are motivated by your experience and what you've seen in your brother. How can our listeners support this effort?
There's a note to the Carbone donation page. It has information about the event, where it is. So if people want to come out and join and say hi, whether they take a walk in the park, that'd be great. We're going to have some food for a lunch there, and a park for kids to play at. And if you're not able to make it and know someone affected by cancer and want to help fund research for cures, they certainly don't have them all yet. So there's work to be done there. There's a link that hopefully post for us, Peggy, and we'll go from there. We got a big goal, and all we can do is try, right? That's what we can control.
And the goal is $10,000?
$10,000. It'd be great to exceed that, but we'll start there, right?
And for sure, a link in the show notes that we'll share out here so others can support. And Jordan, actually, this piggybacks off something that came up in a podcast a few months back with Katie Coyne, who had joined me here and talked about the power of cancer research and what it's done for her. That just underscores the efforts that you are going to support that cause. How is your brother doing today? 5 years ago, everything changed for you and for him. What's the status these days?
I would say he lives a relatively normal life. He's still running and biking, chasing his kids around. He had 2 really good years. He was on oral chemo, part of a trial. He got to live a normal life. He was away from the injection chemo where he'd sit and usually feel like garbage for a couple of days. But about 2 months ago, there was a slight bump in the road. He's still in good shape, but he had to get on more advanced chemo. So he's back sitting in a chair and getting some injections for a couple hours every other Monday. So Mondays, I think he appreciates Sunday dinner in his house. It's kind of the last day with his family. And then Mondays are kind of miserable. Monday night, he basically says goodnight when he gets home from chemo and has to sleep to rest up. Tuesdays are okay. And then usually by Wednesday, he's back in pretty decent shape. And then he gets 12 days of pretty normal life. He's back on 2 weeks of chemo and the hard stuff. But you wouldn't know when you talk to him, when you see him. He looks great. And again, he doesn't want us worrying about him. He says, this is what my normal is today. We hope it's different in the future and only for the better. But he says, I was given 6 months and I've had 5 fabulous years with my family. And he says, we all are going to end, right? There's a timeline on our lives. And because he was given a diagnosis, right, he sees it different and he lives every day full. And so I think that's just the biggest message. He says, don't waste a minute worrying about me. That means you're not living your life full. And so wake up every day and make that decision, make it a good day and live it out. Some of us just don't know when our clock is. And so we live carelessly. I think we need to live with intention. He's beating the odds. He's an N of 1. He makes us proud every day.
And how lucky is he to have the support system around him, including you?
There's that clock we all have, and we think it's going to go forever. I was recently talking to someone, and I really thought about it. I'm considered middle-aged. I'm 37 years old, and If I live to 100, I'm in the middle third. People in their 60s and 70s will say they're middle-aged. And if your clock gets to as long as the 1% of our population, you're not middle-aged. It really makes you think of life differently than, maybe when we're 15, when you're 20 and 25. And when I put my little girl to bed every night, I still get to cuddle with her and hold her, and she rests her head on my shoulder. That makes it all worth it. And it's the reason to get up in the morning and make sure you can share those moments with people and have intention for your day. I think I just challenge people to wake up and really think about what you're going to do with your day and why did you get the chance to wake up today? Because not everyone does. How can we affect this little world of ours for the better? Because we do get that chance. If we're living and breathing, we do get that chance.
And then you decide and you just go do it. Anything else?
Finish every day with a glass of milk too. After my runs, I'm a big chocolate milk guy, right?
The key to success.
A cold glass of milk always does the body good. Maybe we can leave it on a lighter note than some of the heavy stuff we've talked on. But
thanks for sharing the light stuff and the heavy stuff, the greater lessons here of intention, decisions, choices, and living life to the fullest every day. Sometimes we all need these reminders, right? You had one that motivated you and stuck with you, and it's a gift to the rest of us that we get to hear that story.
I do want to thank you, Peggy, for what you do. I think you're a unique individual in our industry. I think you're telling some pretty cool stories. I do look forward to what you're producing every week. There's a lot of nonsense out there that people can spend their time listening to, but I think you've brought some great people to the podcast. It's something I do look forward to, and the messages you're sharing are not always just dairy focused. It's a wide variety of things. And so I think you need some credit and a nice pat on the back to keep up the good work. It's not easy starting what you did, but I know you have a following, and there's not a single person I talk to in our industry that hasn't heard of the Up Level and tells me stories of when they're listening to it. So keep it up, and we got to spread the good word of dairy and how it affects people in different ways.
Oh, Jordan, that was so nice. Thank you. But hey, thank you for being one. Thank you for jumping in to be a list of the incredible people that are kind enough to share their stories. Thank you for that.
Anytime.
You just heard from Jordan Matthews from Rosy-Lane in Watertown, Wisconsin. And if you want to show your support for Jordan on his upcoming A Day in the Park ultra running fundraiser for the Carbone Cancer Center in Madison, Wisconsin, there is a link in the show notes where you can make your contribution to help him hit that $10,000 goal. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thanks for listening to the Up Level Dairy Podcast.